Okay, welcome to episode 3 of the RMS Titanic build. As you can see, I've been a bit busy off camera. I painted the hull. I've used Vallejo 71442, which is anti-fouling paint. And an interesting fact about the real Titanic, the anti-fouling paint was specifically designed for the Titanic. So although it's usually depicted as being red, it was actually a almost salmon pink color. And above that we have the black hull and the white upper hull. Now, because the Titanic was so new, the overall finish was very good because it hadn't aged. But I figured that the white on the outer hull here would not have the same attention as any of the walls or the rest of the ship inside these areas, purely because it would be difficult to get to these areas to keep them clean. And you remember before it left for New York, it had already gone to Cherbourg in France, and then on to Queenstown in Ireland. So she'd already been at sea. So I just put in some pre-shading, and I did this by painting the entire hull black, and then cleaning off the areas that would be painted white, just leaving remnants of the black, just to give it a little pre-shading. I also applied decals. You can see the waterline mark there, and very, very tiny Titanic there. Same on that side. And at the back, Titanic Liverpool. There was pinstriping decals, but I took 3 of them off the paper. And as you can see, they're very, very thin. And they just disintegrated when they were sat in water. So they were completely unusable. So I'm going to leave that off. And I don't think that's going to make any real difference because you can see how thin they are. Almost invisible to the naked eye from any sort of distance. So as this is going to be going on display, I think we can do without. And as you can see, got nice straight lines. Something that you'll notice when you put the paint on, which is hard to notice when it's in its original kit form, there is a slight bulge to the front and the back of the hull, which is more noticeable when it's painted. And this is how it's supposed to look, so don't worry about that. But it can draw the eye when you have it sat on display, so just bear in mind. And I've also done the plinth, painted it black and sprayed it with Revell clear gloss, give it a nice strong coat, and place the RMS Titanic decal on the front there. And you can see again, I think this is just a bad batch of decals because it did split when it was just sat in the water again. So that's what I've done so far. And basically I did this off camera because I wanted to experiment with the weathering on the outside, and I think that looks quite good. And with the decals in place and the anchors on the front, it really starts to look a little bit special. So on to the next stage. If we look at our instructions, you can see we've done stage number 1 completely. We've used some parts off the sprues. Go on to number 2. We've done the plinth. I'm going to fit the rudder and the props a bit later on, so don't worry about them. And it's showing the deck, the first deck, how it's painted up. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to fit the props a little bit later. So we just have an anchor point, some walls, and some fittings front and rear, which we'll do after we've painted it, which we're going to get started on now. Okay, so you can't see clearly, but the decking only has actual blank decking sections and not full, so we just want to go around the model, just get these sections completed. You can see I've already marked off the supports for the cranes. And another interesting fact about the cranes, which are these pieces here, these are always depicted as being white in films, in photographs. But one of the problems with photographs of the Titanic was it was done using a technique called blue paint, which is very hard to modernize and colorize. And there's a lot of interpretation needed. So these are always depicted as white, but on the other Olympic line ships, the Britannic and the Olympic, these were actually green, as were the capstans on the deck. So we're going to be painting them with flat green, just to keep in line with a little bit of extra information that I've dug up online. The smokestacks are always depicted as yellow, but they're actually a little bit darker, so we're going to be using the Vallejo faded yellow instead of a flat yellow. And just out of interest, this is the paint that Revell give you for the anti-fouling. And you can see there's a vast difference between the two. This one being more authentic. And as for colours, that's basically the historical information. I'm going to be using bronze on the propellers purely because this is what was sent to me. I ordered brass, but they say that it's the same colour, and as you can see, it's quite metallic, and it basically is the same colour. And for the parts that we're doing now, we're going to be using wood deck from Vallejo, and it's 71444. So we'll need that. And it is a model air, so it can go straight into our airbrush. So, the hull was finished with a coat of gloss varnish, and I used Winsor & Newton, which I get from the range. I don't know if it's available anywhere else. And it does a really brilliant job. It's quick drying, only needs one coat for the most part. And I've got that in gloss and in matte. And for making my own filters and washes, I've got Winsor & Newton low odor solvent and a set of oil paints. We're not going to be doing much in the way of washes on this because, as I said earlier, the ship was new and the weathering was almost non-existent. So, without further ado, let's get moving. Okay, so we're going to be doing the decking areas first of all, and the rest will be hand painted because it's very fine detail. So I'm going to do as much of the decking as I can possibly find, just to save time later. So on with the trusty respirator. And I'm going to open the window. So it's on with the trusty respirator. Turn our compressor on. Turn our extraction on. see I've now painted the decking portions, so let them dry. And you can see that the paint does bring up the detail. And what I've tried to do is get an even coat, but not too even, just to give some wood effect. But this can also be touched up later on. But a lot of this won't be actually seen that much once the model's together. So we'll just go ahead and start putting the model together. I'm not going to spray the white walls because again, a lot of them won't be seen from the outside of the model. So I'll go ahead and hand paint any that can be seen. And now it's just a case of putting these individual pieces onto the deck pieces. And they're very small, so that's going to take a bit of time. So I'll let these dry and we'll come back to it.